that 24 divided by 3 is 8. It's just different ways to say the same thing. That's kind of what we're doing here. Okay, so if I'm converting to other forms, let's start with standard form. If I don't have standard form, I always like to find that first, okay? Because it's easiest for me to look at standard form and figure out the other important pieces of information. Figure out the other forms of the equations I'm going to work with. That's a little bit light. I'm actually going to make this a little darker. Okay, so let me just do this here. I'm going to make this a little darker. Okay, so I have my standard form. Okay, so what I need to do is I'm going to rewrite the equation as I have it. Okay, so I have 2, I have x minus 3, quantity squared minus 8. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to expand. Okay, standard form means you have to get it in that ax squared plus bx plus c. So I'm going to go ahead and expand all of this stuff. When I multiply, I have to make sure I'm not going to distribute that square. You actually have to write it twice, and then you're going to use that FOIL method to multiply. You can distribute the 2 into one of the factors if you want, but usually I like to get rid of that FOIL or get rid of those two binomials by using that FOIL method. Get that over with. So if I do my first, my outer, my inner, and then my last, I have this, okay? If I keep moving forward, right, if I clean up at the inside here a little bit, okay, now I'm going to go ahead, and is that a plus 8 or minus 8? Minus. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to distribute that 2 and then combine like terms. So I have 2x squared minus 12x plus 18 minus 8, which ends up as plus 10 on the end. Okay. All right, so if I want to like say, okay, how can I confirm that, yes, this is actually the standard form, intercept form. Okay, so intercept form, I don't have room, so I'm going to write over here. Whenever you're writing an intercept form, you need to go through standard form, okay, because you're essentially factoring. So I need to start with standard form. Okay. And basically, I'm just going to factor this. Now, the nice thing about this problem is that there is a greatest common factor. So when I take that out, I'm left with this. Okay, this is where you guys do the whole multiply add thing. I have to multiply to 5 and add to -6. Okay, those two numbers are going to be -5 and -1. Because this is that nice, easy factor, I'm going to have x minus 5. And then x minus 1. And by the way I mean by it's nice, easy factoring is that that x squared term now has a 1 in front of it because I took that 2 out as that greatest common factor. Once you have this, right, we're factored, you guys are actually in intercept form. Okay, so intercept form and factor form, we're going to use those words interchangeably or those expressions interchangeably. But really what intercept form means is that you have this a value out in front, and then you can see the 2x intercepts in the two factors. It should have 1x minus or plus something, 1x minus or plus something for the second one. When I look at my x-intercepts, all of you should be okay with this, okay, because we've been identifying these. My two x-intercepts for here are going to be 5, 0, and 1, 0. It's not -5 and -1, remember, because you're dealing with that form that has x minus some number. So whatever that number is that's subtracted, that's what you're going to make into those coordinates for your x-intercepts. Okay, so this is basically the gist of it, right? You're going to find the axis of symmetry, find the vertex, find the y-intercept. If you can identify the x-intercepts immediately, you do that, and then you're going to convert to other forms, okay? Sometimes we're given vertex form to start with. In the second one, we're going to be given intercept form to work with, so we're going to do that now. All right, so for intercept form, all right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, again, identify all this key information here, okay? So I have my axis of symmetry. I don't know what that is just yet. All right, so what I have to do is I have to figure out what the two x-intercepts are first, and then I can add those up and divide them by 2, because if you looked on that first slide, what we had was that you take the two x-intercepts and you're basically averaging them. You're finding the midpoint between them. So I'm going to jump down to the bottom, and I'm going to write the two intercepts that I have. The two intercepts I have here are -5, 0, and then I'm going to have 1, 0. So that means my p-value is -5, my q value is 1. when I go ahead and I actually find this, okay, I'm just going to take those two numbers, I'm going to add them and divide by 2. Okay, so this is going to give me -4/2, which just gives me -2. So that means that axis of symmetry is at x equals -2. Unlike vertex form, I do have a little bit more work to do. Okay, it's not so visible to me what the vertex is, right? Same way with the axis of symmetry. Now I have to do some work. So I have to sub this value in to the equation, sub that -2 into my equation that I have on top. And guys, sometimes you're going to want to write a -1 out there to help you. Okay, so if you write that -1 out there to help you, you don't have to write a -1 as long as you keep that negative sign. It means like the opposite, or -1 times this whole thing. It's up to you how you want to rate it. All right, so when I go through this, I get -1 times 3 times -3, which leaves me with +9. Okay, so my vertex, I always write it as a coordinate. It's going to give me -2, +9. Okay. Again, my next thing to do is find the y-intercept. Okay, I do have a little work to do for this guy because I have to sub in 0 to find it, although evaluating this isn't too bad. Okay, so this gives me -1 times 5 times -1, which ends up with just 5. So I have 0, 5 as my y-intercept. Okay, now I'm ready to find my other forms. So again, I always like to go through standard form. So if I don't have standard form on the screen, I'm going to write it. Okay, so if I'm not given standard form, that's what I'm going to find first. So to find standard form, again, you guys have to expand. So this all comes from multiplication. So this is the new stuff that you're seeing here. Okay, and I know I'm moving a bit fast. I am going to put all these notes online, but I just want to get through all this today, so that, like, showing you guys how to do it today so that we can practice tomorrow. Okay, so we have this standard form, right? And what I'm going to do, or I'm trying to get to standard form, what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite the equation as it was given. So I'm rewriting this intercept form equation. And I'm going to do something similar to what I did before, okay? I'm going to distribute. I'm going to use my FOIL method. And then I'll distribute that -1 at the end. So when I multiply here first, I'm going to get that x squared. My outers are -1x plus 5x. Then I'll get -5. Okay, I'll clean that up a little bit. So I'll have -1 x squared plus 4x minus 5. Okay, and then I distribute that -1 to get my final answer. And again, a couple of things we want to check. That a value is the same, it's -1. And then I also have that y-intercept, that's 5. I can see that in standard form really clearly. Okay, if I want to make sure that my axis of symmetry is at -2, I will just use that -b/2a equation. And if I do that, I will find that I do have that axis of symmetry of -2. And you guys can check your vertex if you want. Plug that number in, make sure you're getting the same vertex out of this. If you get the same vertex, then you're good. Okay, so the next thing I need to find then is my my vertex form, okay? Because that's what I wasn't given. All right, so I'm going to remind you that in vertex form, there's a couple of things that you need to know. I need an a value, which we know my a value is -1, and I know that my vertex is -2, 9. Okay, in vertex form, you guys have that a, x minus h, quantity squared, and then you have plus some number, okay? We know that our a value goes here, right? And then my h and my k value go here. So I know that my a value right now is -1. I know that my h value is -2. And I know my k value is 9. So this one's a little bit easier because you're literally just subbing some stuff in. You have to clean up your work, but this is just like a little template that you can kind of fill into. So because I have that x minus -2, that's going to become x plus 2 in those parentheses. And then that plus 9 is just going to hang out at the end. Again, this is a lot of algebra, and it's going to take practice, okay? But it's just using your algebra skills to rewrite in different forms. And it's using your ability to find important information to help you confirm that the way you wrote this is correct. Okay, so I do have that vertex at negative 2, 9. My a value is still negative 1, and I'm doing pretty good. Okay, I already filled out my x-intercepts. So this is it. This is all you would have to fill out here. All right, so for our last form, we have 5 minutes, so we'll probably get through this. Okay, I have to find a couple of things. So I'm going to start with that axis of symmetry again. Remember, in this guy, I have to use that opposite of b over 2a. Okay, so this is going to give me negative 12 over 8, which if you notice is not going to be an integer, and it actually reduces to a fraction. So that axis of symmetry is a fraction. That's okay. It doesn't always happen, but it can. All right. The only hard part about that is when I sub it in to find the vertex. Other than that, this being a fraction really doesn't affect our work at all. Okay. I chose this because I do actually like us to work with a fraction every now and then because we have that fraction phobia. Okay. So we'll just work through this and we'll evaluate. I want to remind you, okay, that these can be written as 4 over 1 and 12 over 1. And I also want to remind you that you have to use order of operations. So if I have this 4 over 1, right, I'm going to square that negative 3/2 first. You square the top and the bottom, so that becomes 9/4. When I multiply over here, right, I have 12 times negative 3. Okay, so that's going to give me negative 36. And when I divide that by 2, that gives me negative 18. Okay, and then I have that plus 8. Okay, when I actually go to evaluate the first part now, the first part of the multiplication, you can cross simplify or you can multiply across the tops and bottoms and then divide. It's up to you. But either way, I'm going to be left with 9 minus 18 plus 8. Okay, which is just going to give me negative 1. All right, so this vertex that I just found, sorry, I'm a little squished here. I'm actually going to write this a little smaller so we have room to make this guy a little smaller. That vertex that we have now is negative 3 over 2, negative 1. Okay, that's like the hardest part of this problem, honestly, because the rest of it, it's just some algebra skills that you have. Okay, so I feel like evaluating with fractions we have a little trouble with, but again, just use your order of operations, and if you go try to move, be careful and don't move too fast, and you're okay. All right, y-intercept, this one's nice and easy because I can see it. So I have 0, 8. Wonderful. I don't have any work to do for that. If you want to plug in 0, you can, but remember in standard form, it's always going to be that c value. Okay, now I'm ready to convert to other forms. Now I already have standard form. All right, so what I'm going to do is let's just write in vertex form first. Now vertex form is the easiest thing to write because it's literally just filling in a little template. Okay, you know that your a value in this case is 4. And you know that your vertex is negative 3 over 2, negative 1. Okay, when I go to fill in some things, so I have that y equals a, x minus h, quantity squared, plus k. If I go and fill in my a value, which is negative 1, I'm going to fill in my h and k values, which are negative 3 over 2, and then negative 1. And then I just have to simplify at the end. Okay, I want to just make things look nice. I want to make it look pretty. So I get x plus 3 over 2 in the parentheses squared. And then I'm going to get minus 1 on the outside. Okay, vertex form is the easiest way to write an equation if you know the a value in the vertex, because it's literally just subbing some stuff in and then cleaning up the equation if necessary. So if you have a double negative, making it positive. If you have plus and negative, making it subtraction, and so on. But it's literally just placing things in an equation where it belongs. For your intercept form, okay, again, I'm going to work with standard form. Okay, I'm not going to use the vertex form. I'm always going to go back to standard form. This needs to be like your middleman. It needs to be what you go through to help you. Okay. I can factor this again. So again, I have that greatest common factor that comes out. Okay, when I think about the numbers that multiply to 2 and add to 3, that's just going to be positive 2 and positive 1. I have my little equation. I'm done with my intercept form. And then if I want to say what my x-intercepts are, I'm going to write them down here. This is where I get negative 2, 0. Let me just move this down. I get a negative 2, 0, and negative 1, 0. All right, guys. So what I'll do for you, for those of you who couldn't hear me, is I'll post a video of this hopefully today. All right. There's only 9 of you in here, which is bad. Okay, I'll post a video of this later so that you can see it, and then tomorrow you guys will practice. All right. So you can go to second period. Have a good day.